Richie, and what is the role of the others, some relevant beings like His Holiness in this vision of contemplative neuroscience? It was you and Francisco, someone else. How was the meeting with His Holiness about that?
Well, His Holiness played a very, very important role. I first met His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, in 1992. And Francisco was with me at the time. His Holiness was very direct and challenged me. And I had, up until that time, done a lot of work on the brain mechanisms associated with stress and trauma and anxiety and depression and fear. And he looked at me and he said, why can't you use the same tools to study kindness and to study compassion? And that was a very pivotal moment. It was a wake-up call. And I didn't have a very good answer for His Holiness other than that it's hard. But you know, if you go back to textbooks of psychology in the 1990s, not a single textbook had the word compassion mentioned at all. If you look in the index, there's no mention of the word compassion. And so I made a commitment to His Holiness on that day in 1992 that I was going to do everything I could to put compassion on the scientific map. And today we literally have many hundreds of scientific papers on compassion. And so it's been very gratifying to see this field really grow, but it was due to the original inspiration from His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Mi pregunta es, ¿cómo empezó todo y qué rol jugó en todo eso la figura de Su Santidad el Dalai Lama? En 1992, el profesor y Francisco estaban juntos y él conoció al Dalai Lama. Y desde el primer momento, el Dalai Lama le dijo muy directamente, tú has estudiado mecanismos sobre el estrés, el trauma, el miedo y las emociones. ¿Y por qué no puedes utilizar esos mismos mecanismos de observación para esas cosas, para estudiar otros como la amabilidad, la compasión, el altruismo? Y yo la verdad es que no tenía respuesta para esas preguntas que me hacía el Dalai Lama. No había en toda la obra literaria en aquel momento ni una sola referencia en 1992 a la palabra compasión desde la perspectiva psicológica. La palabra compasión simplemente no existía y hoy podemos observar que la palabra compasión está en cientos de papers y en cientos de libros desde la mirada científica. So we can say that we have done a path in the last 3 generations, 3 decades about contemplative neuroscience, Richie.
Yes, there's been a very dramatic growth, and I would say that the inflection point is at 2004. If you look at the scientific publications in the world scientific literature, there is a big uptick right after 2004. And we published our very first paper on the neural correlates of open awareness meditation in very long-term meditation practitioners. And it came out in 2004 in a very prestigious scientific journal. And this was a paper with very, very long-term practitioners like Mingyur Rinpoche was one of the practitioners, Mathieu Ricard was another. These are all people who had an average of about 35,000 hours of lifetime practice. So very, very accomplished practitioners. And we saw these dramatic differences in their brain. And that, I think, really helped to establish that, that meditation practice can have profound impact on the functioning of our brain.
En los últimos 30 años, la neurociencia contemplativa ha sufrido cambios dramáticos, pero hay un punto de inflexión que es el 2004. En el 2004, la neurociencia empieza, y si vais a las referencias sobre los papers publicados, a establecer más y más lecturas sobre los neurocorrelatos y el open awareness, cómo eso sucede. En el 2004 hicimos un paper muy particular sobre algunos meditadores de largo recorrido, como Mingyur Rinpoche o Matthew Ricard, personas que habían meditado más de 35.000 horas. Y eso marcaba una dramática diferencia. Nos ayudó a establecer cómo la meditación incide en ciertas funciones del cerebro. Can you say a little bit more about how the meditation make difference in functions, areas, or regions of the brain?
Certainly. It's important to appreciate that there are many different forms of meditation, literally hundreds. I often say that meditation is like sports. There are many different kinds of sports, and they produce different effects on the brain and on the body. And it's not that surprising that you see that. And so the first thing is it's very important not to lump all forms of meditation together. They do different things. It appears that they recruit different circuits in the brain depending upon what kind of meditation. So for example, forms of meditation that emphasize concentration and awareness affect circuits in the brain that regulate attention. Compassion meditation affects circuits in the brain that are important in regulating emotion. Analytic meditation, which is really using reasoning to particularly to probe the nature of the self, engages other areas of the brain that are important in certain kinds of cognition. So different kinds of meditation will use different brain circuits depending upon what kind of meditation it is. And the evidence shows that there are both functional changes in the brain and structural changes in the brain. By functional, we mean changes in the activation patterns of the brain. And by structure, we mean changes in the anatomy, in the actual wiring, and in literally the size of different brain areas. But change in the structure of the brain, for the most part, requires longer term practice. It doesn't happen immediately. In fact, we have very good evidence to show that 8 weeks of a very commonly practiced form of mindfulness meditation does not change the structure of the brain, contrary to some popular conceptions. And so it takes more practice to change the structure of the brain, again, which is not that surprising. But the bottom line here is that practice matters.
So you mean that mindfulness, it doesn't change the structure of the brain. You can say a little bit more about that, Richie?
Well, beginning practitioners who take a 2-month mindfulness-based stress reduction course, that is not sufficient to produce a change in the structure of the brain. So while there are some reports and some hype in the media about that, our evidence very clearly shows that it really does not produce changes in the structure of the brain. It does produce changes in the function of the brain. And the suggestion is that changes in the structure of the brain will come, but they require much more practice.
Did you measure how much practice require?
Well,
like years?
For changes in the structure of the brain, the evidence shows that it requires typically around 1,000 hours of practice. So a typical mindfulness-based stress reduction course is between 24 and 30 hours. So considerably more practice is needed before you actually see changes in the structure of the brain.
Thank you. We are going to translate. ¿Qué es la meditación y cuántos tipos de meditación hay? ¿Cómo estos afectan a los diferentes circuitos? Richard nos comenta que la meditación es como una especie de, hay muchas, hay cientos, es como los deportes, ¿verdad? Entonces, los diferentes deportes tienen diferentes efectos en el cuerpo, así la meditación es también. Podemos decir que la meditación afecta al cerebro y al cuerpo en cuanto a los circuitos y también en cuanto a la formación de los mismos. Por ejemplo, la meditación en la concentración y en la awareness produce atención. La meditación en la compasión afecta los circuitos de la emoción. La meditación analítica, más razonal, afecta a la naturaleza del ser, por lo tanto, a la cognición. Podemos decir, y la evidencia nos muestra, que los circuitos del cerebro se influencian en la meditación de dos maneras, en la función y en la estructura. Por ejemplo, en la función, en ciertas actividades del cerebro. Y aquí es más fácil conseguir cambios, pero cuando vamos a la estructura anatómica del cerebro, al tamaño, 8 semanas de training como mindfulness no son suficientes. Para los principiantes, MBSR puede ser suficiente para sentirse mejor, pero las estructuras y los informes nos muestran que para cambiar en profundidad la estructura del cerebro necesitamos muchas más horas. Normalmente MBSR son como máximo 24 horas y hemos visto que hasta que no hay cambios pasan al menos 100 horas de meditación. You was talking about Mingyur Rinpoche, this holy being, Dalai Lama, Matthew Ricard. Do you feel that there are different type of meditators and they have something in common, this brain, these beings, what they have in common?
Well, are you asking from a neuroscientific perspective?
Yes. Well, whatever you want to share, but I am asking you as a scientist, yes.
Yeah. So we studied many very long-term practitioners, around 25, and they weren't just men, we also had women. Some of them were monastics like Mingyur Rinpoche and Matthew Ricard, but some of them were not monastics. We find some commonalities in their brain, which suggests that these are changes produced by long-term meditation practice. One of those commonalities is the presence of very high amplitude gamma oscillations in their brain electrical signature. These gamma oscillations are a marker of plasticity. They also are highly synchronized across different brain regions, which we think is a neural reflection of the kind of panoramic awareness that they describe when they are in this kind of meditation that we've called open awareness. Open awareness is where you are not fixated on any single object, but your awareness is spacious, it's vivid, and you are aware of a vast array of external phenomena and also internal phenomena, your body as well as your thoughts and your feelings. So all of that is held in awareness at the same time. And that, we think, is reflected in this highly synchronized gamma oscillations. And one of the unusual things that we see is that these gamma oscillations are not just present during meditation, but they also are present when these individuals are not formally meditating. And this suggests that these are enduring differences. The title of the book that I wrote with Dan Goleman is called Altered Traits. And this is an altered trait. It is an enduring change that permeates every aspect of their life. And what we find even is that these gamma oscillations are present during sleep in these practitioners, suggesting that there is this same quality of awareness which is preserved even during sleep.
Did you measure the gamma isolation?
Yes, we brought them into a sleep lab, and we actually measured this while they're sleeping too. So yes, we confirmed that and we've published that.
Very good. So, le pregunta al profesor qué diferencia existe entre los meditadores avanzados y los meditadores no avanzados, ¿verdad? Él dice, hemos medido a 25 meditadores avanzados, hombres y mujeres, monjes y no monjes, yogis, por ejemplo, y hemos visto cambios significativos en unas ondas, las ondas gamma. Estas ondas gamma son las responsables de la plasticidad del cerebro, de ofrecer sincronicidad y también neuroreflexión en ciertos patrones, como por ejemplo el awareness, la apertura. Entonces, este open awareness, esta capacidad de tener una apertura muy grande de los meditadores de grandes recorridos, se caracteriza por algunas cosas. Por ejemplo, no se fijan en un simple objeto, pueden recrearse en un espacio vivido profundo, pueden contemplar la vastedad del contexto fenomenológico externo y a la vez mantener una buena relación con su cuerpo internamente. Esa capacidad de estar en awareness externa e internamente es parte de estas características de los gamma oscillation. Y gamma oscillation, estas ondas no solo se producen cuando meditan, sino también cuando no meditan. Esto es lo más característico. En el libro que el profesor Davidson escribió con Daniel Goleman, Trazos alterados, describe muy bien los experimentos. Cómo las ondas gamma se producen igualmente incluso en el sueño.